Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The autumn sun streamed through the enormous windows of Forrester Creations, casting a golden tinge across the satiny office where Dylan sat, nervously tapping his fritters on the polished oak office. He'd been called in suddenly, and the air inside felt heavier than usual, thick with implied pressure. He could feel his heart beating a little faster than normal, not from the usual excitement of fashion and business, but from commodity much more particular. Commodity he hadn't allowed himself to defy completely until now. R.J. Forrester, Brooke's oldest son, was sitting across from him, wriggling with a pen and stealing ganders at Dylan. There was a weight in the silence between them, a charged energy that neither wanted to admit directly, though both were keenly apprehensive of it. Dylan had known RJ for times, not just as a friend, but as someone who had come a constant presence in his life, someone whose happiness signified further than he'd ever admitted. And RJ, though youngish, had a maturity about him that frequently caught Dylan off guard. He could see right through Dylan's precisely constructed calm, and he knew Dylan felt the same intensity of emotion he did. The verity was, their relationship had evolved sluggishly, nearly gradually. It hadn't started as anything unusual, just a participated interest in the family business, a bond erected through late-night strategy sessions and participated frustrations with the high drama of the Forrester family. But over time that bond had strengthened. Subtle traces, moping ganders, inside jokes that only they understood, moments of concern that went beyond fellowship, it was each there and they both knew it. Yet neither had dared to name it out loud, not because they didn't feel it, but because the stakes were too high. RJ's family, the involved web of commitment and prospects, and Dylan's own sense of propriety made them vacillate. Dylan cleared his throat, breaking the silence that had stretched long enough to feel stifling. RJ, we need to talk, he said, his voice low but steady. He wanted to maintain control, to act like this was a casual discussion, but he couldn't hide the slight earthquake that betrayed his jitters. RJ's eyes widened slightly, but he jounced, leaning forward, elbows resting on his knees. Yeah, I know. His voice was quiet but filled with a confidence that made Dylan's stomach flip. There was no vacillation in RJ's expression, only a quiet resoluteness, the kind that came from someone who had been allowing about this moment just as long as Dylan had. Dylan took a deep breath. I know we've been spending a lot of time together recently, and I do'n't want to pretend presently. I say'n't. RJ, we're further than musketeers, aren't we? The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. Dylan watched as RJ's eyes softened, a small, nearly inappreciable smile lugging at the corner of his lips. There was relief there, yes, but also commodity, deeper commodity Dylan couldn't relatively name until that veritably moment. Yeah, RJ said eventually, his voice slightly above a tail, but it carried an inarguable certainty. We're further than musketeers. I've known it for a while, perhaps indeed before you did. Dylan's casket tensed. He felt a rush of feelings, relief, fear, excitement, and a kind of exhilaration that made his head spin. All the late-night exchanges, the horse laugh, the implied understanding between them, it had all led to this. And yet the fear dallied. What would the others suppose? Brooke, Steffi, Ridge, everyone who had their own complicated web of prospects and judgments? RJ sounded to read his studies, because he reached out, gently resting his hand over Dylan's. The touch was electric, transferring a jolt of mindfulness straight through Dylan's body. Dylan, I do'n't watch what anyone additional thinks. I watch about us. About this, about you. Dylan's throat tensed. He tried to prepare himself for this moment, imagined it innumerous times, but nothing could truly ready him for the reality of RJ's words, the honesty, the vulnerability. RJ, I felt the same way for so long. I didn't know how to say it, or if it was indeed the right time. RJ's smile widened, and for a transitory moment, the weight of the world sounded to lift off Dylan's shoulders. There's no way a perfect time for this stuff, Dylan. Life's messy. Families are messy. But this is real. And I'm done pretending I do'n't feel it. Dylan jounced, a small laugh escaping him, a admixture of unease and joy. I'm done pretending to. I can't do it presently. You mean too important to me. They sat there for a long moment, hands intertwined, letting the intensity of the disclosure settle over them. Outdoors, the bustling megacity carried on as usual, unconscious to the quiet, transformative moment being within the office walls. Dylan's mind contended, not with solicitude this time but with possibility. Possibility for commodity that felt like it could change everything in a good way. And yet, the practical side of Dylan couldn't be entirely ignored. Their relationship wouldn't be without complications. The Forrester family was notoriously defensive, and rumors in Los Angeles traveled faster than the megacity's autumn breath. They would need to navigate this precisely. But for the first time Dylan felt a spark of stopgap. He looked into RJ's eyes and saw the same spark reflected back. A blend of determination, excitement, and unwavering affection. "I do'n't watch about the drama," RJ said suddenly, breaking the silence, his voice steady. "Let them talk. Let them suppose what they want. We know the verity. That's what matters." Dylan smiled, feeling a sense of calm marshland over him. He'd spent so much of his life trying to anticipate every outgrowth, trying to control every aspect of his life and connections, but now in this moment he realized he didn't have to. He could trust this. Trust RJ. Trust himself. Their discussion shifted also gently, naturally, as they began to talk about small effects, the mundane details of their day. The Rearmost Designs Forrester Creations was rolling out, the asininity of Steffi's rearmost romantic drama. But beneath it all there was a new energy between them, a quiet closeness that neither could deny. Every regard, every touch, every participated laugh corroborated the bond they had still erected over the times. As the autumn sun dipped lower, casting long murk across the office, Dylan realized commodity profound. This wasn't just a moment of concession, it was the morning of commodity new, commodity real, commodity neither he nor RJ could ever go back from. And as they stood together, hands still linked, there was a participated understanding that whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together. The verity was out. Dylan and RJ were further than musketeers. And in the changeable, chaotic, drama-filled world of Los Angeles, and especially the Forrester family, that verity was a revolution in itself. For Dylan, the consummation was liberating. For RJ, it was affirming. For both of them, it was a pledge that no quantum of gossip, judgment, or complication could break. They had set up commodity rare, commodity worth fighting for, and as they left the office together, stepping into the fading golden light of the megacity, they did so with a quiet confidence that this was only the morning of their story. And in the sprawling, ever-dramatic geography of the Forrester conglomerate, that story was about to shake effects to their veritably core. As Dylan and RJ walked out of the office together, the megacity's warm evening light painted their faces in soft gold. But the comfort of that moment couldn't completely shield them from reality. LA was buzzing, and in the world of the Forresters nothing stayed quiet for long. The moment they stepped into the road, Dylan felt that familiar gnaw of pressure, like walking on a tightrope where the fewest misstep could set off a waterfall of chaos. And with RJ by his side, holding his hand just slightly tighter than usual, the stakes felt advanced than ever. RJ sounded to smell Dylan's apprehension. He looked up with that quiet intensity that always disarmed Dylan and smiled. "You're allowing about Brooke, aren't you?" Dylan chortled vocally, shaking his head. "And Ridge and Steffi and the rest of the family. It's insolvable not to. Every time I breathe, it feels like I'm about to walk into a storm I can't control." RJ jounced, squeezing his hand. "I know. But that's the thing about storms, they pass. Or at least they can if you face them head on." Dylan stopped walking for a moment, letting RJ's words sink by. There was verity there, inarguable and comforting. RJ had an uncanny way of cutting through his fears, of offering clarity without ever sounding moralistic. It was one of the reasons Dylan had been drawn to him from the launch. He took a deep breath, letting go of the knot in his casket. "You're right. Perhaps it's time to stop hiding. Stop pretending we're just musketeers. People are going to talk anyway. We might as well enjoy it." RJ's smile widened. "Exactly. And either, I suppose there's someone who's been staying for this disclosure nearly as important as we have." Dylan raised an eyebrow, curious. "Who?" RJ's aspect softened. "Me, obviously. But also Brooke. She's going to figure it out ultimately." And actually, I suppose she'll understand, indeed if she acts dramatic at first. Dylan laughed, a blend of unease and relief. Brooke does have a gift for drama, that's for sure. But you're presumably right. She loves RJ more than anything. And perhaps she'll see that whatever this is between us, it's real. Their horse laugh faded into a comfortable silence as they continued down the bustling thoroughfares. But the megacity's hum couldn't drown out the weight of their coming-way family relations. The Forresters were a complicated web, where commitment and secrets twisted into one another like vines. Every commerce could ripple into unlooked-for consequences, and Dylan knew it. Latterly that evening, Dylan set up himself at Brooke's house, an assignation from RJ that had sounded casual at first but now carried an implied graveness. As they arrived, the smell of fresh flowers and ignited chuck saluted them, a typical Brooke touch of warmth that made the house feel like a safe haven despite the pressure washing beneath the face. Brooke appeared in the doorway, her face lighting up when she saw RJ, but her eyes snappily darted to Dylan, taking in the subtle pressure between them. RJ. Dylan. It's so good to see you both. Her voice was cheerful, but Dylan detected a flicker of curiosity, a question hanging implied in the air. RJ walked in confidently, taking Brooke's hand. Hi, Mom. We wanted to come by to talk. Brooke's brow furrowed slightly. Talk? About what? Dylan changed a brief regard with RJ, quietly agreeing to let RJ lead. He watched RJ take a deep breath and speak with the steady assurance that had always set him piecemeal. Mama, there's commodity we need to tell you. Commodity about us. Brooke's eyes widened slightly, the first suggestion that she might formerly smell what was coming. Us? She echoed, her voice laced with caution. Yes, RJ said vocally yet forcefully. Dylan and I were further than musketeers. We watch about each other a lot. And we see and hide that presently. The silence that followed was blaring. Brooke's original shock was visible, her mouth opening slightly, her hands firmed mid-air. But sluggishly, she took a step forward, studying both Dylan and RJ precisely. There was a flicker of commodity in her eyes, a admixture of concern, surprise, and eventually understanding. You're serious, she said, her voice steady but softer than Dylan had anticipated. RJ jounced. Fully. Brooke soughed, a small smile lugging at her lips. Well, I suppose I should have anticipated this ultimately. You two have always had a special connection. I didn't anticipate you to admit it so soon. Dylan felt a surge of relief. Brooke's response wasn't one of wrathfulness or judgment. She was conservative, but she was willing to understand. That small acceptance was enough to strengthen the bond he formerly felt with RJ. As the evening continued, Brooke's original reservations sluggishly melted into discussion, and for the first time in weeks, Dylan felt a hint of normality. They talked about their day, the rearmost Forrester systems, and indeed laughed at Ridge's rearmost capers with Steffi. But beneath the casual badinage, there was an turnabout of significance. Dylan and RJ had taken a step forward, one that couldn't be undone. The coming day brought new challenges. Word traveled presto within the Forrester menage, and Ridge, predictably, had formerly picked up on the subtle changes in his son's address. Dylan knew Ridge would be delicate. He was defensive of RJ, pious to Brooke, and skeptical of anyone who sounded to disrupt the delicate family balance. Dylan arrived at Forrester Creations the following morning, awaiting Ridge to defy him directly. Sure enough, he set up Ridge in the office, arms crossed, his brow furrowed in an admixture of concern and vexation. Dylan, Ridge began, his voice steady but cold. We need to talk. Dylan squared his shoulders, bracing himself. I figured this might be. Ridge's aspect was sharp, piercing. RJ told me about you too, about your relationship. And I need to know what's going on. Dylan met Ridge's eyes, unyielding. What's going on is that RJ and I watch about each other, further than musketeers. And we're not going to hide it presently. Ridge's jaw tensed, but Dylan noticed the subtle shift in his posture. Ridge was trying to control the original surge of emotion, but he couldn't hide the defensive instinct that had always defined him. You're apprehensive of the complications this could beget, Ridge said sluggishly. The family, the company, everything. I am, Dylan replied. And I'm willing to face them. Because this what RJ and I have, it's real. And it's worth it. For a long moment Rich said nothing. Also, with a shriek that carried a hint of abdication, he leaned back in his president. I see and say I understand it fully, he admitted. But I do know one thing, I want RJ to be happy. And if this is what makes him happy also I suppose I've to accept it. But don't make it harder than it formerly is. Dylan jounced, relieved by Ridge's words. Indeed, if the road ahead would be far from smooth. We wa'n't. I promise. Over the following weeks, the dynamic between Dylan and RJ began to settle into a meter that felt natural yet thrillingly new. They participated secret moments at Forrester Creations, quiet feasts that turned into late-night walks along Santa Monica Beach, and small, meaningful gestures that only they understood. Their connection strengthened, solidifying into a bond that neither could deny or escape. But with happiness came complications. Gossip spread snappily within Los Angeles's tight-knit social circles, and soon whispers reached Steffi, Hope, and indeed Taylor. Some responses were probative, others skeptical or disapproving, and the pressure that Dylan had stressed began to mount. One autumn, as Dylan and RJ left the office together, they were met by Steffi, whose expression was a admixture of curiosity and conservative concern. RJ, Dylan, I heard about you too. RJ took a step forward, confident and unvarying. Yes, Steffi. It's true. Dylan and I are further than musketeers. Steffi raised an eyebrow, studying them. And everyone's okay with this? Brooke. Ridge. Dylan changed a regard with RJ also spoke. It's not about whether everyone's okay. It's about us being honest. And so far Brooke and Ridge they're trying. Steffi's expression softened slightly, though a flicker of dubitation remained. Well, as long as RJ is happy, that's what matters most. It was a small palm but significant. Dylan and RJ were sluggishly sculpturing out a space for themselves, a space where their relationship could live without pretense or secretiveness. As the weeks turned into months, their bond only grew stronger. They faced challenges together: family drama, business pressures, and the ever-present scrutiny of Los Angeles society, but each trial only strengthened their connection. Every touch, every regard, every rumored word in quiet moments came a testament to the authenticity of their love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm gleam over Los Angeles, Dylan and RJ stood on the deck of Forrester Creations, looking out over the megacity. Dylan reached for RJ's hand, intertwining their fritters. RJ, Dylan said vocally, I've no way been further certain about anything in my life. No matter what happens, I want us. I want this. RJ turned to him, eyes shining with emotion. I feel the same way, Dylan. Always have, always will. And no matter what the world throws at us, we'll face it together. In that moment, amid the lights of the megacity and the chaos of the Forrester family, Dylan realized commodity profound. Their love wasn't just a quiet rebellion against anticipation. It was a force, a verity that neither time nor circumstance could dwindle. And as they stood together, hand in hand, it was clear that the story of Dylan and RJ was only just beginning. Because in a world filled with secrets, drama, and endless twists, they had set up commodity real. Commodity imperturbable. Commodity worth fighting for. Dylan and RJ sat side by side on the edge of the Santa Monica Pier, the evening sun painting the water gold. For weeks, their fellowship had felt different, deeper, charged with a quiet pressure neither dared to name. Every regard, every laugh, every participated secret had pulled them closer. And now the verity was inarguable, they were further than musketeers. RJ broke the silence first, his voice soft but steady. Dylan, we can't pretend presently. Dylan's heart contended. I know I felt the same way for a while, but I didn't know how to say it. RJ smiled, relief apparent in his eyes. It doesn't count how. What matters is that we're honest now. I watch about you further than I've ever admitted. The words hit Dylan like a jolt, and for the first time, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of his feelings. RJ, I watch about you too. I always have. And I don't want to hide it presently. Their hands set up each other, fritters intertwining, a small but important protestation. Around them the pier brimmed with life, unconscious to the quiet revolution being between them. Dylan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The Forresters were a complicated, opinion family, and Los Angeles thrived on gossip. But for the first time he didn't care. RJ leaned in slightly, resting his head near Dylan's shoulder. We'll face whatever comes together. No matter what. Dylan smiled, a admixture of relief and exhilaration submerging him. Together, he echoed. In that moment, amid the fading sun and the soft sound of swells, Dylan realized commodity vital this was real. This was worth every challenge, every judgment, every handicap. And as they walked off the pier hand in hand, the megacity around them sounded to fade, leaving only the certainty of their connection, honest, imperturbable, and just beginning.